Okay, great. This is, I feel the need to remind everybody that this is in the miscellaneous category. So the date is November 7th of 2018, and you've been elected not governor of Texas without any resistance from the state. Coincidentally, China successfully created the world's first time machine, and the oil companies in Texas are wanting it so they can use their advanced technology to drill oil from the past. Would a Patrick Smith not governorship prohibit the oil companies from purchasing a time machine? If so, how and why? If not, why?
This is a very interesting question. So there's a lot rolled into the very beginning of that premise, right? If Patrick Smith is elected not governor of Texas, it means that the majority of the political will has undergone a radical sea change to now believe that they should be free of non-consensual governmental control. At which point the Texas government would cease to hold sway over their lives, as would the federal government. And of course, Patrick Smith has no power to control what people do. It's all to voluntary association and the free market. So that, I think, is the basic answer to your question. If Patrick Smith wins, everyone's free, and Patrick Smith doesn't have power to control time machines and their usage.
I recall watching one of your prior episodes that you had looked like a skull, and you would present it and say, "This is devil's advocate."
Yes.
Okay, great. Can we pretend that I'm holding the skull?
Sure.
And now suddenly I'm just a statist. It's very temporary, but so in this regard, you would allow for an. Oh, okay.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you can hold it on my behalf.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So in this scenario, you would allow for the malevolent oil companies to travel and deplete the resources from prior years, prior decades, prior centuries, and then leave us with, theoretically, we would have everything, but we wouldn't be at this point because we wouldn't need these resources anymore because people have gone without them for so many years that time evolved to create new technologies. So it's a little bit of a straw diagram figuring out which way the time travel would go. But ultimately, from a statist position, you would allow for them to travel freely through the dimension of time?
So, assuming time travel exists, that doesn't change ethics. Ethics are universal. They apply equally to all people in all times and spaces. So if I'm able to go back in time and steal resources, then I'm committing theft. I'm aggressing against the people to do so, and the world will know about it. Adding time travel to the universe does not grant Patrick Smith new powers he didn't have before to regulate and control people.
Wow. I'm really grateful that I asked this question because it really exemplifies how closely you hold ethics to your political views. That I realize that as a libertarian, we support our natural rights to travel. We think about traveling on a flat surface like a road or walking on a sidewalk or through the air, but we don't typically think about traveling through another dimension because it doesn't exist in a way that we can travel through it in a different way yet. So, that avenue being time, and even if it's such an abstract sci-fi like form of travel, you would still hold your ethics closely, and not only the ethic of freedom of travel, but also the act against aggression. So if someone did aggressively steal, even if it was from the past, there would still be repercussions in the present time. So I guess that kind of actually drives it.
Well,
go ahead.
That's how you extract the principle behind a scenario somebody gives you. What is the rule that you're testing in this situation? Does ethics apply across time as well as across space? And if I were to say, oh no, well that's not okay, we get to stop those people from traveling through time for the purposes of theft, that means that time is not a factor. That makes ethics non-universal across time, which means that there's some really dangerous implications for right and wrong based on, okay, well, is it right today? Will murder be wrong tomorrow? Are we sure? If I think someone is going to commit a crime 3 years from now, can I attack them today because this ethics doesn't really take into account time anymore? So consistency is key to everything.
And I love consistency. I think I've heard you preach about that in a few different videos. Whenever I study philosophy, and I've studied many different philosophies, not just political ideas, I look for consistency. And where I see the most consistency, I find the most purpose, just the most, the best concepts, the most applicable concepts. So I'm going to take a minarchist position now, as far as how would the oil company, the CEO, whoever is deciding they're going to travel through time to steal resources from the past, in a minarchist society, there's law enforcement, there's judges, there's military. So a minarchist could say that our state would incarcerate or punish those people accordingly. But how would those people be justly punished in an anarchist society? Emphasis on justly.
I don't think you need the time travel device to illustrate the point for that one. It could just be what's to stop in a free society, what's to stop an oil company from going and taking over the oil fields of some other private property owner. I don't think the time component is necessary. Unless I'm missing something, let me know. The way companies work, and I've been at the executive level of companies competing in business in the free market. When your company reaches a certain size, to get investors, to have other people take you seriously as a enterprise, you have to form structures of management that meet certain standards, such as a board of directors. If you don't have these structures of management, if you're just basically a lone wolf CEO owner that does whatever he wants, you're going to find it very difficult to work in the market, to function in the market. The reason why is because these structures of hierarchical control and regulation serve to make the business more stable and more valuable over the long term. If you're wanting people to buy your stock, let's say, and you don't have a good solid management structure in place with oversight of each other and cross-checking and bringing in experts and asking them to join your board of directors to advise on issues X, Y, and Z, then you're going to have a much harder time getting investment and a much harder time convincing people to partner with you in whatever kind of joint ventures you might be involved in. So based on that, it's definitely, in my opinion, absolutely certain that in a free market, in a free society without coercive forms of government, you're still going to have these management structures. If you have a large company, you're going to have a board of directors. The CEO making these decisions is going to answer to this board of directors exactly like they do now. This means that that's how the feedback comes from the market to these companies. If a CEO, let's say he decides to form his own private army and go try and raid somebody else's oil fields, the public ill will that will generate will scare the hell out of the board of directors. Investors will start running for the exits. Their company's value starts tanking. Board of directors comes in and puts a stop to it immediately. They call an emergency session and tell the CEO, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, but you can't do this. We're not an army. We can't go and rob a bunch of people's oil fields just to get a bigger monopoly on the price of oil. People will stop buying from us. We'll go out of business tomorrow. You're fired. We're going to get a new guy in charge. That's the free market. That's free association working. And doing that across the time dimension is not going to make much difference either, because people are going to know what happened.
Great. I think that was a very astute answer given to a sci-fi question. So your answer actually reminded me of a communist, Stalin.
No.
He.
I never want anybody to say that to me. Sorry, go ahead.
when you were talking about the oil fields, the CEO and the board of directors of oil companies being malevolent and possibly attacking another oil field to steal their products, it reminded me of Stalin, because that's what he did in Ukraine, where he I believe it's called the Holodomor, where he basically put a tax on Ukraine's peoples for their food, and then that tax wasn't enough to feed the Russians, so they started taxing more and more until eventually it was 100% tax on everything. But the reason it actually reminded me of what you were saying, reminded me of that, is because it was kept a secret from the entire world for over 70 years, maybe 100 years. It happened in the 20s, I believe, and we just found out about 20 years ago. So I guess the question in response to that would be, would there ever be, in a free society, would there ever be an oil company that would be bold enough to make those steps and in the attempt to keep it a secret?
There's so many factors that are hard to predict. So first of all, whoever owns the oil fields in the first place, it will have a defense force, likely covered by an insurance company that keeps it well funded and well protected. Second of all, any competitors to the attacking oil field company would love for them to try and capture their oil, these people's oil fields, because they would immediately go on a marketing blitz, running commercials. Evil Oil Corp is trying to attack innocent people to steal their oil to get a monopoly on the market. Stop using Evil Corp's fuel now. That would be like playing. It would be handing them marketing candy. In a free society, unlike the government scenario, you're not keeping this stuff secret because they're obviously capturing resources. People would know that happened, and there is no system of control in place to allow this stuff to happen, even though people know it's happening, and there's no system of control in place to keep the information quiet.
Absolutely, the system that we have now isn't working. I think I would agree with Ron Paul. I'm not so sure if Ron Paul is actually an anarchist, because I've heard him saying things about government intervention in abortions. But he's very well respected, and he said that he doesn't. He said that when he compares the idea of having no government to the idea of us having the government we have now, we would be exponentially better off without any government than what we have now. I don't want to. I'm really glad that this somewhat silly of a sci-fi question turned into a very thorough discussion. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. I don't want to end the discussion without giving you an opportunity to add anything to it that you would like to add, though. Is there anything that you would like to add to this thought?
No. I appreciate edge cases because they serve to clarify ethics. So you will not see me shying away from any of them. Bring it on.